In the United States midterm elections, as Republicans and Democrats push for control of the Senate and the House, Democrats have a slight lead by one seat. In Bolivia, President Luis Arce highlighted the economic achievements and internationally recognized social advances during his management report presentation to the parliament. In the framework of the United Nations Climate Conference in Egypt, the Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance called for Africa to be treated differently from the rest of the world. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada, and these are the news. Control of the United States House and Senate is still going on Wednesday, as states across the country tallied votes in the tight midterm election races. The close contest will determine whether Democrats keep their slim majorities in the House and Senate, or if Republicans will seize control of one or both chambers of the legislature. The outcome could make all the difference for President Joe Biden, whose legislative hopes rest on whether Democrats can push his agenda through the hyper-partisan Congress. So far, Democrats that has the lead in the Senate results, with 48 seats against 47 by Republicans. Meanwhile, in the House results, the GOP has 220 seats over the 215 by the Democrats. Millions also casted their votes in key races for governor, secretary of state, and other offices down the ballot. And we'll remain in this topic. Voters went to the polls to renew 35 seats in the Senate, 435 seats in the House of Representatives, as well as 36 governors and mayors. So far, Maryland elected Democrat Wes Moore as governor, putting an African American into the governor's mansion for the first time. In Massachusetts, Democrat Maura Healey won the governor's race, taking the office from outgoing Republican Charlie Baker. Republican Ron DeSantis won re-election as Florida governor, according to the Associated Press projection. Republican Sarah Huckabee Sanders became Arkansas's first female governor. Now we move on to other topics. In Guatemala, the high cost of fuel caused protests by truckers in front of the Ministry of Energy and Mines. Caravans of buses and trucks came out with huge banners stating that they rejected the exaggerated increase in fuel prices and urgently demanded the repair of highways. They also asked the authorities to regulate the prices of the basic food basket. The trucks made long queues in the streets as a synonym of the concentration, and in this way to receive an answer to the problems present in the nation. The president of the Haitian Senate, Joseph Lambert, said he will challenge the decision by the United States and Canada to impose sanctions for alleged abuse of his position by involvement in alleged corruption. The Biden administration announced the sanctions last Friday, with the U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken describing Lambert's actions as undermining the integrity of the Haitian government and a gross violation of human rights. But the Haitian senator stated the actions as unfair and insisted that justice is being put to the test. In Bolivia, President Luis Arce completed 2 years in office, on which occasion the president gave a management report to the country and reiterated that attempts to take power by force country will not prosper. President Arce also highlighted the economic successes of his administration. Our correspondent Freddy Morales gives us more information.
Thousands gathered at the Morelos Square to watch the 2-year report on giant screens and express their support for President Luis Arce.
We thank our president, Brother Lucio, Brother David, in view of the fact that he has been able to sustain an economy in spite of the pandemic we have been going through in spite of economic crisis.
As Central Obrera, we look favorably on this. It can be seen that management has been done, and we are here to support and continue supporting it.
President Arce has many challenges, and he's fighting against imperialism. The situation complicates his administration. What we want is to give him encouragement.
Our brother is an economist. He knows how to manage the country's economy, and he is getting us out of so much that has been ruined and plundered by the right wing.
Arce, in his report from Parliament, highlighted the economic successes of his administration.
In 2021, with the recovery of democracy and the outcome of the economic and productive reconstruction policies, economic growth was 6.1%, and in the second quarter of 2022, economic growth was 4.1%. These high economic growth rates show that the Bolivian economy is recovering from the negative effects of the previous government's policies.
During the de facto government, the economy shrank by less than 9%. Inflation is now estimated at less than 4%, in a world context of high inflation and economic crisis. The President called on the government to safeguard these achievements.
Today we are going through moments in which some groups want to destabilize us again, but I am sure that the organization, mobilization and conscience of people that advances, that want to work and that want to continue growing will overcome all this type of adversity. Those who sow hatred, racism and confrontation between brothers will not tear away our dreams.
President Arce also dismissed the right-wing's attempt that executed the coup d'etat to recreate the same conditions of instability of November 2019.
Much less our firm determination to continue working for better days. We will not allow this seizure of power by force, nor will we allow the plundering of our natural resources. We are completely certain that the support of our people is broad. Our people are wise and recognize a patriotic national government that seeks the national welfare above sectarian or regional interests.
In the detailed management report, President Arce highlighted that this year, the trade balance is achieving a surplus of almost $1 billion, an unprecedented achievement in more than 30 years, and a reduction of unemployment to 4.2%, which contributes to the reduction of extreme poverty. The presidential report was followed by a civic parade.
Freddy Morales, TeleSUR, Bolivia.
We'll take a short break now, but first, remember you can follow us on our TikTok account at telesurenglish.net, in which you will be able to see news in different formats, news, updates, and more. Other stories coming up, stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. On Wednesday, the Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance called for Africa to be treated differently from the rest of the world at the 27th Conference on Climate Change being held in Egypt. According to the organization, since Africa is one of the regions of the world hardest hit by climate change, despite low levels of greenhouse gas emissions, they claim that they have suffered a major impact that could cost $50 billion a year by 2050. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa has insisted on the need to change the approach to climate finance because of the cost of borrowing for African nations. In the framework of the COP27 Climate Summit, the President of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro Moros, held a trilateral meeting with the Prime Minister of Barbados, Mia Mottley, and the Prime Minister of the Bahamas, Philip Davis. During the meeting, the leaders reviewed the progress made in the alliance with Venezuela and discussed joint contributions that could be made in the near future to face the climate crisis. The president of Malawi, Lazarus Chakwera, praised the leaders present in Egypt for the COP27 Climate Summit for showing up in the event and support the climate mitigation benchmarks.
to mobilize climate financing for mitigation, adaptation, and loss and damage. It is a test of our capacity to work together as a global community that is sailing into the same storm in the same boat. In a fair system, the benchmarks for climate mitigation, adaptation, and financing for developed nations like the United States, United Kingdom, Australia, Norway, Japan, and Russia cannot be the same as the benchmarks for developing nations like Malawi, Mozambique, and Madagascar, just as the benchmarks for those low-income and low-productivity countries cannot be the same as the benchmarks for a high-income and high-productivity country like China.
And Zimbabwe's President Emerson Mnangagwa urged leaders at the UN's climate summit to lift what he called the albatross of illegal economic sanctions to help his country achieve greater progress on climate goals.
Progress would be made on our climate goals were it not for the albatross of illegal economic sanctions imposed on our country. We demand the immediate lifting of these unwarranted and punitive sanctions.
In his speech, Botswana's President Mokgweetsi Masisi sought a better adaptation funding system to help implement adaptation actions.
Another permanent feature in Botswana which continues to deplete the little resources we have for socio-economic development. This has prompted the government to develop a drought management strategy to assist in resilience building to mitigate loss and damage as well as mobilize resources. This will, however, not be enough without innovative adaptation funding systems. I wish to urge the UNFCCC to rethink adaptation financing. For effective implementation of adaptation actions, the project-based approach will not yield the intended results. Drought is another.
At the COP27 climate summit, the Prime Minister of Tuvalu, Kausea Nantano, stated that the global community expects more concrete measures to fight climate change.
Sea level rise, we lose our lands and we lose our identity. And that is something that we really need to bring up to the attention of the global community and especially to the UN process, to recognize that once we lose our lands, we want to maintain our statehood. I'd really love to hear from all the statements that COP need to implement this and that, but I'm not hearing the message clearly coming out of most of the statement. But certainly we really appreciate if the COP could come out with each outcome, stating that they are going to implement this and that for the betterment of the not only for the world but for the global community.
And we have more news coming up after a final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back. In Italy, the situation between the boats transporting migrants and the authorities continues to worsen. The current government's refusal to let the migrants disembark, except for those the authorities have described as vulnerable, complicates the already difficult conditions on sacrifice and stress they suffer on the boats. Some officials have warned of the desperate conditions of the 250 other migrants still trapped aboard two charity boats in the port of Catania.
We have encountered situations of psychological fragility and vulnerability, which led 3 people to jump into the sea, and then 1 to go back on board, while the other 2 spend the night here. And also a series of infections as confirmed by the ship's doctor, an infection that could be scabies. Yesterday and last night, we called again for a new medical reassessment, and the police have now confirmed to me that this evaluation is on the way.
On Tuesday, the Foreign Minister of Russia, Sergei Lavrov, and his Indian counterpart, Subrahmanyan Jaishkarnar, gave a joint press conference following bilateral talks in Moscow. The two countries, members of BRICS, discussed the prospects of military technical cooperation, including satellite navigation, space science, and manned missions. Lavrov also gave an update to Jaishkarnar about the special military operation in Ukraine, during which trade between Russia and India has grown substantially since February. Foreign Minister Lavrov held it high value India's neutral stance position on the situation.
We discussed in detail the status and prospects for military technical cooperation, including joint production of modern forms of weaponry. We put a large emphasis on space in such areas as satellite navigation, space science, and manned missions.
On Tuesday, Tanzanian authorities said the wreckage of a plane that crashed on Lake Victoria has been pulled out of the water, following the country's deadliest air accident in decades. 19 people died when the precision airplane went down on Sunday as it approached the northwestern city of Bukoba, prompting a frantic rescue effort by emergency workers, fishermen, and residents to plug people to safety from the largely submerged aircraft. Precision Air said that the aircraft was an ATR 42500 manufactured by Toulouse-based Franco-Italian firm ATR and has 39 passengers, including a child, and 4 crew members on board. Police blamed bad weather for the accident amid questions about the government's handling of the rescue effort. Prime Minister Kassim Majaliwa said the government will do more to ensure safety in the aviation transport sector. A new report by the United Nations organization revealed that at least 2/3 of the population in South Sudan suffers from famine. The Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, together with UNICEF and the World Food Programme, assured that the food insecurity situation is due to several causes, among them poor economic conditions and climate change. They also warned that the proportion of people facing high levels of hunger and malnutrition is an all-time high. On Tuesday, the Syrian ministry announced cases and deaths of cholera in Damascus, Syria has increased. The number of deaths in the country has risen to 49, and the number of infections to 1,249. The Syrian ministry indicated that the number of deaths due to cholera reached 40 cases in Aleppo, 2 in Deir ez-Zor, 4 in Al-Hasaka, 1 in Damascus, 1 in Homs, and 1 in Hama. The UN called for the support of the Syrian government to confront cholera, calling for allocating the amount of approximately $34.4 million for a medical plan for up to 3 months to avoid the spread of the epidemic in the Syrian regions. And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.